A sigh of relief and joy that they have finally been released flies away into the sunset sky. One of the interlocutors expresses confusion about this distribution of priorities at school. The girl reminds him that not everyone can make a living with supernatural abilities. The young people start a conversation about the commercial aspect of granting abilities. One of them comes to the conclusion that those who are born with supernatural abilities should be envied. Although they shared their talent with others, they essentially had no other choice. The conversation turns to the darky race and the war, and the girl says she has no intention of volunteering. The boy boasts that his father arranged everything for him and that the family business is practically in his pocket. As soon as they notice Riley, girls start praising this incredibly talented, handsome man. They are interested in which military academy he will get into, but presumably the best one. The girl, whispering to Riley, asks if he wants to have dinner with her today. He says he had no plans, and nearby Quinn is told to stop immediately. The boy asks if the pursuer saw how many fingers he was showing him. He calls Quinn a fool and, asking if he wants to die, promises to catch up with him. The boy, forgetting to look around, continues to tease his pursuer. This ends up being dangerous for him, because he only notices the obstacle at the last moment. As Quinn falls after the collision, he experiences such pain that it becomes difficult not to comment on it. The girl sympathetically asks him if he is okay, if he is hurt, and the guy turns his gaze to her. She groans regretfully, belatedly realizing what this delay cost Quinn. Having finally caught up with their victim, the former pursuers begin to mimic her. The sight of this makes the girl feel unwell, and her condition does not go unnoticed by Riley. At the same moment, the guy silently collects and activates mana in his hand, stabilizing the charge. The magical matter finds its target with lightning speed, hitting Quinn straight. People around them don't understand what's going on and why these guys are fighting on the last day. As they leave, one of the guys warns Quinn not to cross their path. The guy coughs. They call him lucky because he managed to withstand Riley's blow. And while they are discussing Quinn, he mentally wonders if they all don't get bored. Our hero has no superpowers, which becomes the subject of ridicule for everyone around him. There is no point in talking about the fight against the darky race, because even at school they are despised. News is coming in about the 5-year anniversary of the peace treaty with the darky race. Quinn thinks about going to the military academy tomorrow to try to come out. However, if he fails to reveal his superpowers even there, the boy's life is unlikely to change. Returning home, the first thing Quinn does is go to the Book of Abilities, plunging into 6 years of memories. When those people came to him, they politely apologized for the disturbance and asked his name. The boy confirmed his identity and was introduced as a representative of the Special Forces. They respectfully reported that the boy's parents died in the war with the darky race. Since Quinn had no relatives, the state took on the responsibility of paying for his upkeep. The parents left this Book of Abilities to their son as an inheritance, but he had to sign it. Then the boy wondered why his parents went to war. Now this question worries him no less because all that was left was this book. Moreover, even it was not fully accessible as it still remained closed. Sighing dejectedly, Quinn assumes that he will have to get the Book of Ability at the military academy. The guy considers a photograph to be much better than this stupid book that won't open. Saying that he barely remembers what they look like, Quinn doesn't notice the drops that have fallen from his nose. When the blood reaches a hard surface, it breaks into even more pieces. Quinn belatedly catches herself, screaming in frustration and rushing to stock up on napkins. But suddenly the guy freezes, trying to understand what is wrong because the book takes on a special aura. It grows stronger and stronger, spreading throughout the area, and Quinn's confusion continues to grow. Suddenly the boy realizes that everything is not for nothing, and the book opens. More and more questions appear. Something like a spark bursts out of the tome and rushing towards the owner crashes into his head. Crying out more from surprise than pain, Quinn tries to figure out what's going on, but the next moment he begins to experience pain that is unbearable. So, in order to give her at least some vent, the guy starts screaming loudly. The pain begins to subside. Dying down along with the desperate cry, Quinn's breathing is ragged. Falling to his knees from exhaustion, the guy breathes a sigh of relief but also feels a headache. A strange window pops up before my eyes with a congratulatory message about receiving something. But Quinn doesn't quite understand what they're talking about, as he only sees the beginning of a word that looks like blood. And this is the last thought that hits the skull before losing consciousness. He dreams of boys playing with a ball with enthusiasm, and Quinn himself is unable to contain himself. The kids stop when they hear a strange voice asking if he can join them. Little Quinn approaches his silent interlocutors cautiously, afraid of scaring them. And they rush off, saying that they don't want to be friends with someone who has a bad upbringing. The same people appear behind him. again telling the boy that his parents died. The boy with haunted eyes turns around, reliving his grief. And the silhouettes of the parents from the frame begin to call their son by name, mournfully chanting him. The voice, full of pain and helplessness, gradually gains momentum, turning into a scream. The young man's eyes widened, and he realized that someone was indeed calling him by name. The people standing outside warn Quinn that they intend to break down the door. They give the guy a head start of up to 3, and he, hurrying towards them, announces that he is already on his way. Sergeant Griff asks what's going on and why the guy only opened the door now. When the guy says he was sleeping, the man says he has exactly 2 minutes to get ready. Quinn carries out the order while trying to remember where he might have left the Book of Ability. He is also interested in how he managed to sleep until the morning, and the guy remembers opening the book. Noticing the broken glasses, Quinn realizes with annoyance that he won't have time to buy new ones. But something tells him that this won't be necessary. The guy rubs his eyes in disbelief. But indeed, Quinn's vision was somehow miraculously restored. A voice behind the door hurries, asking Quinn Talon if he is stuck somewhere by chance. The Griffin notices that they are not going on vacation and tells the guy to find himself a free place. Noticing Riley, Quinn asks if he can sit next to him, but he says the seat is taken. Looking around the cabin, the guy comes to the conclusion that the other seats are also occupied. Quinn hesitates at the seat next to Riley, who warns him in a disgruntled tone about the consequences of his choice. Suddenly, he notices a man waving invitingly at him, who is talking about a free seat. Quinn thanks him and introduces himself, but he responds by calling himself Warden, and a strange sound is heard. The system notifies its owner of the use and subsequent rejection of the ability. Quinn doesn't understand where this creature came from, and Warden is surprised by his neighbor's strange behavior. The guy assumes that the blonde doesn't see him, but still decides to check to be sure. Warden asks about his neighbor's ability, and he replies that he doesn't have it. Suddenly, Quinn's stats drop to 50 and he tries to deal with it. The reduction affects such characteristics as health, endurance, agility, and strength. Comparing all the components, the guy realizes that the rays that hit him were to blame. Quinn suggests they'll have to avoid the sun, while Warden inquires about his neighbor's health. The guy replies that it's probably because he slept poorly, so they offer him some water and to rest. He accepts the help, thanks to the blonde, and in the process discovers something new. Drinking water has a positive effect on Quinn, and he gets a related task. The guy sitting in front is reprimanded for shouting loudly, and he tries to justify himself. Sergeant Griff orders the disturber of the silence to come to him immediately, but he has no desire to do so. While he tries to restore justice, Warden suggests that his neighbor take his time, and Quinn, looking at the new system tasks, suggests that this creature is a bat. Superpowers usually have 1 point of activation and are strengthened after awakening. Quinn, however, finds his own process similar to a game, and the ability remains a mystery. The guy turns to his neighbor to clarify the matter, but stops mid-sentence. Quinn finds it hard to believe that anyone can fall asleep so quickly. However, after looking around the entire bus, the guy realizes that everyone else is also sleeping. The system informs the Queen that an unusual substance has been detected in the air. Griff, realizing that the guy is resistant to sleeping pills, is going to use an individual approach. Saying that they will take a different path, the man carries out the sentence. The system now notifies when the user's body begins to feel tired. Quinn already understands everything. His eyelids become heavy and his eyes close. The dreamless sleep is interrupted the moment the boy is freed from the bag. Warden thinks that this brother is a sleeper, and he's trying to figure out where they are. The blonde assumes that they have arrived at the military academy, although he himself has only just woken up. Layla notices that the 5th one has woken up. The blonde standing with her back to her is named Irene. Peter greets the newcomer politely, but stutters shyly. In the distance, the sound of heels is heard, followed by another pair of steps. They are gradually getting closer. Tester Ginger, noticing that everyone is awake, is about to conduct the test. The first mate to call out Peter Chuck's name is when Quinn starts to panic a little. Ginger asks the baby not to worry, asking about the ability, which he doesn't have. Layla is amazed that there are still people without abilities, but Warden doesn't see the problem. Ginger is not upset by this either. She asks to come and take the book, having received a superpower. When asked whether it is free, the answer is yes. For now, Peter is assigned the 1st level. The woman advises studying this book in your free time, and then you can retake the test. Quinn is surprised by the bracelet that appears, and Layla says that everyone has one. When a satisfied Peter steps aside, Ginger invites our hero next. He gasps in surprise, silently noting the fact that it is his turn. The woman asks about the ability. Quinn doesn't understand why she would ask when she already knows. After he says he has no ability, the assistant gives him a book. The system notifies that the ability cannot be learned, but the book can be exchanged. Quinn remembers that you can only learn one ability, which means it exists. He considers exchanging the book for experience points, but is wary of facing endless checks. Eventually, after politely thanking Ginger, the boy gives up the book of ability. The woman asks him if he is sure, then reminds him that the book is free. After all, if you miss this chance, you will have to rely only on yourself. Having heard the boy's answer, the woman asks him and everyone else to wait. She reports from above that a student named Quinn Talon refuses to accept the book. The woman is asked about her purebred status and then given orders to test her potential. If he is an ordinary person, he has no business in the military academy. Ginger accepts the order. Apologizing for the wait, the woman announces her intention to test the candidate. Outside, Ginger asks Quinn to destroy 3 targets as quickly as possible. First, the boy receives a task, and then mannequins appear one after another. Mentally, he notes not only fatigue, but also his vision, which has become blurry. Quinn already knows the reason for this. It all happens because of the sun, which has become his scourge. But nothing can be done, and the guy gives in forward. Ginger notes the power of 5. The woman is amazed by such a weak meaning. It raises many questions. As Quinn tries to get closer to his target, the dummy attacks, keeping the enemy at bay. Several simultaneous attacks in different places make the boy hiss from an unpleasant feeling. While maneuvering between 2 opponents, Quinn also only manages to achieve a 5 in agility. The examiner lets the guy go, and he checks the scores against the system, looking for solutions. Quinn thinks with annoyance about how difficult it is for him to be exposed to sunlight. Warden encourages him by offering him water, and the other man, grateful, enjoys the shade. Watching Layla, the blonde admits his mistake because he thought the girl was a purebred. Purebloods are a group of people who oppose supernatural abilities. The ideology of mere superpowers is the root cause of the division of society. They develop equipment and undergo training to counter the people of Darka. Quinn now understands the reason why the blonde thought Layla was a pureblood. Meanwhile, the girl's test is completed, and she is assigned the 2nd level of abilities. Layla thinks this is unfair because she was given higher grades at school, Ginger explains. And he says that you can retake the test later, and then calls the next candidate Irene. Warden expresses delight at being the last one to be tested. The girl orders him to take his hands off her in a threatening tone. The guy asks her not to get angry. He stops mid-sentence, feeling a tingling sensation first in his fingertips. Irene warns that Warden won't get off so easily next time. Ginger allows the girl to proceed, and Quinn notes his friend's indiscretion. He says he would like to fight Irene, but he doesn't fight girls. Irene, however, demonstrates her abilities in all their glory, dealing with targets without killing them. Ginger assigns her a level 5, the blonde's 3rd such today. The guys admire Irene, and Layla mutters something about how she will soon catch up with the blonde. Warden Mountainpick is delighted that it's finally his turn to shine. As soon as he starts fighting, all eyes turn to the training ground. It's not only the abilities that arouse involuntary interest, but also the fact that they are like Irene's. Ginger expresses joy that the challenger is also a level 5. It all immediately dawns on Quinn that Warden can copy abilities by touching other people's bodies. The guy is a little taken aback, asking how he managed to do it so quickly. Quinn recalls their first meeting and the blondie's surprise, expressing an assumption. Besides, when Irene froze the guy's hand, he looked surprised. Warden praises the intelligence of a man without superpowers, who responds modestly. Quinn is trying to figure out what his own supernatural ability is. Irene, who had quietly approached Warden, asks about the type of ability and whether it is innate. The blonde man offers to guess, promising a reward if successful, and the girl changes her shoes. Announcing the end of the test, Ginger allows the students to head to the military academy. Peter can't help but admire this thriving city. Quinn also likes what appears before his eyes, and he also does not neglect a remark. When the capsule stops, the door slides to the side with a mechanical sound. Random passers-by rejoice at new encounters, boasting about their levels. Those who have more of it neglect those with whom they were previously acquainted. Peter and Quinn find it mundane, but that doesn't make it any less pleasant. The one who ignored the 2nd level one notices Riley. The red-haired one greets him reservedly, and he refuses to have lunch together. The 3rd level girls fawn over Irene. Hearing this, the 4th level students push them aside, making their way to their superiors. Peter says what everyone speaks of. Everyone wants to have connections with stronger people. Teacher Dar suddenly appeared and called the children to step aside. He invites them to draw numbers from a box, take their luggage, and go to the room. Peter tries to figure out where Warden is. Quinn suggests that he too is surrounded by the lower ones. Approaching the box, the first one draws a number, which turns out to be 23. A guy standing nearby is just thinking about who he will live with during his studies. Hearing that Peter also has a 23rd, the boy starts thinking feverishly. Approaching Quinn, he asks what his number is, and he gives the number, clarifying the reason. The boy comes up with an idea and swaps the balls, thinking that the two will get along well together. Peter apologizes to Quinn, saying that he knew no one wanted to live with someone like him. He reminds him that he is also at level 1 and encourages his neighbor. Warden appears on the horizon and will also be living in room 23. The boys are happy that they will be living together for the next 2 years. At the same time, on the other side, students are discussing the fact that their room was taken away from them. An acquaintance offers to defend the honor of his interlocutor, but the latter has concerns about this. Noticing Warden, they remember that this guy has a level 5 ability. Later, a blonde man's question is heard in the dorm, sounding in an elevated tone. He invites the guys to go somewhere. Peter refuses, citing studying a book. Warden asks Quinn if he's going to go to the library to figure out his ability. The blonde offers to go together, saying that he hasn't read anything for a very long time. There are a lot of people in the library, which involuntarily impresses the guy. Only Quinn can't understand why they only move their lips, but can't hear any conversations. Warden asks what school the neighbor attended. Public schools don't have that. By touching this device, you can create sound insulation so as not to disturb others. The blonde asks about the specifics of the search. Quinn says that he wants to understand existing superpowers. Warden mistakenly believes that his interlocutor wants to become a member of the Purebloods, he clarifies. The blonde man says that in the future, those who take books for free are obliged to obey the military without question. Quinn remembers Peter looking happy, wondering if he knew the cost of the service. Warden is asked about abilities that can be weakened by sunlight. The blonde talks about the possible options, joking that they are not vampires, but people. After some time, Quinn is finally convinced that there is nothing useful to be found here. But still, hope dies last, and the guy is going to go and look from above. His feet lead him to a section that contains works on knowledge in the field of science fiction. The guy finds the story of a red dragon that incarnated as a human quite interesting. But he is inclined to think that this is fantasy, since vampires and dragons are creatures of legend. Yet this doesn't stop Quinn from learning more about vampires. The guy finds the representatives of this race much stronger than himself, with a general weakness for the sun. There is an increase in experience. The system informs that the owner has learned more about the system. The guy screams in surprise, unable to believe his eyes when reading this information. Quinn completely refuses to believe it, believing that it cannot be true. Looking at the book he read, the guy is afraid to imagine that he has the ability of a vampire. Minutes pass, and then hours, and Warden, who had fallen asleep, finally wakes up. He tries to figure out where everyone is, assuming that his neighbor has already gone to their room. Each of the guys has his own thoughts. Quinn thinks he's crazy for doing something like this. And yet what I read seems to be true. And another notification sound is heard. As the boy gains more knowledge about the system, an additional option is unlocked. As a system task, you are instructed to feed on human blood. Quinn is literally in a hurry because he will have to drink human blood. Leaving the library, the guy is glad that the system doesn't force him to do that yet. Quinn entertains the idea that there will be a special reward for completing this task. The guy talks about the time it will take to level up. He notices Peter, who is whining and apologizing to his oppressor for the accident. The blonde says that then he will also apologize verbally later, and they will go their separate ways. And then he asks how he is going to compensate for the blow. Peter says about the lack of money. Noticing the second level, Quinn thinks that such people can only push through. A plan appears in the guy's head, and he, saying it was an accident, pushes the second-level guy in the back. He confronts him, and Quinn apologizes again, saying that he constantly trips. The blonde offers to pay the first level if he doesn't want any trouble. Quinn says he didn't think he'd encounter strong people so quickly. The system suggests activating combat mode, mistaking the blonde for an enemy. Quinn is tempted by the fact that if he wins, he can earn 50 points. The guy starts to provoke his opponent, and Peter begins to seriously fear for his neighbor. The second level activates its ability by rushing towards its opponent. Tom manages to dodge the attack with unusual dexterity and even more. It makes the opponent not only tense up, but also ask the corresponding question. The blonde is curious about where such power comes from at the first level, although he admits that there are some reservations. Quinn believes he has a chance due to his opponent's ability to transform. Previously, Layla had 8 power points, and the examiner rated her as level 2. If Quinn is not exposed to sunlight, all of his stats will have 10 points. The enemy is at level 2, which does not mean that our hero will lose completely. As they engage in close combat, Quinn receives his first wound, causing him to hiss. His opponent smirks, thinking that his opponent lacks agility. Throwing curses around, the blonde deals Quinn another blow. Noticing that his neighbor is losing his advantage, Peter calls out his name in concern. The system reports rapid blood loss, and Quinn feels the sun's rays on himself. However, it is already beginning to sink towards the horizon, leaving a ghost of a hope for victory. The opponent wishes the opponent a quick death, and the system trumpets about the only remaining point. When the explosion occurs, Peter screams his protector's name at the top of his lungs. With the echo of its last sound, the sun sinks below the horizon. Quinn breathes heavily, trying to get his breathing back to normal. His condition is recovering. The blonde doesn't understand how this is possible, how the enemy was able to dodge his attack. And Quinn, grinning maliciously, notes that now it is his turn to boast of his strength. Beginning to understand what he had gotten himself into, the blonde man offered to talk again. Meanwhile, Quinn's stats increase and he lands his first blow. His opponent doesn't even have time to finish his previous line before he starts to spit out blood. The guy, testing his abilities, delivers a few more blows. Peter, watching this, tries to understand how his neighbor managed to achieve such a result. He begins to wonder if Quinn really doesn't have supernatural powers. Looking at his hand, which is overflowing with power, the guy realizes that it is a vampire's. The user status window allows Quinn to track his level-up progress. Along with the accrual of points, the first level of reconnaissance skill is unlocked. The guy is happy with the skill, and at the same moment the combat mode is removed. When Peter asks, Queen says that the blondie is alive. He just taught him a lesson to make sure. While the neighbor is lamenting, our hero is going to figure out the specifics of the reconnaissance skill. The viewer is presented with some interesting information, and Peter advises the guy to go to the medical center. Kyle also has some information hidden, which suggests that it will be revealed as we progress. The guy catches himself thinking about the difference in taste between blood types. Reproaching himself for this, he roughly pulls himself up short, because this is not something insignificant, but blood. Peter draws attention to himself, suggesting that they leave before the battlefield is discovered. Finally coming to his senses, Quinn agrees with his neighbor, saying that he is right. As he moves forward, the guy hears strange sounds behind him, similar to something familiar. Turning around, he actually finds drops of blood flowing from the wound behind him. Peter expresses concern about this, but the bleeding soon stops on its own. The guy's gaze falls on the jacket with a torn arm, and as he looks closer, he notices something curious. Quinn asks his neighbor to return without him, saying that he accepts the offer to go to the first aid station. Peter wants to go along, but his interlocutor asks him to check on Warden, just in case. Later, having moved away to a sufficient distance, Quinn observes her ability to heal. The guy concludes that the system can heal his wounds using energy from food. Feeling hungry, he remembers if there is a place nearby where he can buy something to eat. Before entering the training arena, he manages to find something more or less suitable. The arrows briskly hit the training dummies at about the same time. Exhaling wearily, Layla reports to herself, saying that it's time to wrap things up. Noticing Quinn passing by, the girl finds him suspiciously familiar. Remembering where she saw him, she becomes curious about why he came here. Quinn starts a training test, setting the difficulty to normal. The girl assumes that this boy was dissatisfied with the results of the day's testing. She likes this kind of determination and wants to see this student's progress. Quinn suddenly leaps forward using his full strength. Layla can't believe what she sees because these abilities are clearly not first level. Moreover, not only the strength increased, but this guy's agility also increased. Either the girl is imagining things, or the training dummies are also confused. In any case, they cannot escape, and the targets are eventually defeated. Layla doesn't even know what to think because the targets are destroyed before the clothes fall off. The girl assumes that this guy is deliberately hiding his true strength. The area around the student cafeteria is not much quieter than within its walls. The guys passing by choose seats, and one of them manages to snatch a free one. But before they can land on him, the guy on a higher level demonstrates superiority. When they decide to eat on the street, they discuss high-ranking people, finding them to be intimidating and arrogant. Peter asks Warden if it's okay that he's with them, since the rest of the high-ranking ones are eating indoors. The blonde guy says that his friends are talking nonsense, but he hates the division into levels the most. He laughs, saying that he considers a full stomach to be the most important thing in this life. Sitting nearby, Layla watches the company without taking her attentive eyes off them. Teacher Dar talks about the help of people with innate superpowers and about war. Quinn mentally discusses the convenience of Warden's ability. It can be copied at a high level. Intelligence shows something strange. In place of the blonde's ability, there is a void. Quinn directly asks his friend if he can use Irene's ability. He praises the guy for his intelligence, admitting that his abilities are reset every day. Borrowing occurs during touching. Warden regrets that friends do not have abilities. Quinn's stomach rumbles hungrily, and the blonde is amazed at its insatiability. The guy himself doesn't understand why he got hungry so quickly, but this isn't good. Warden suggests that his friends go ahead, promising to catch up with them after the toilet. The guys walking ahead are discussing the glasses that Riley asks them for. Kyle is among them, and as soon as he sees Quinn, his expression changes dramatically. Peter whispers about this guy, and it's even scarier because he's with his friends now. The latter notice the first-level ones without abilities, while Kyle remains sullenly silent. Peter expresses concerns, but Quinn cuts them off. Otherwise, the blondie would become a victim of ridicule. The guys at a higher level voluntarily and forcibly ask the younger ones for 10 points. Peter admits that he doesn't even get that much in a month. Quinn's answer is less pitiful. The guys say that it's supposedly on credit, and Kyle, who's standing behind them, is sweating profusely. He tries to dissuade his friends, and another familiar figure appears behind him. The 5-level one says that he can lend the points, but the interest will be high. The guys back down, realizing that these three are friends and don't need any trouble. Several more faces appear on the scene, asking why they should offend their inferiors. The kids are screaming about being saved, believing that Riley and Peach will save them from level 5. Even without intelligence, Quinn senses that the energy of these two is dangerous, but he still probes. Momo is unrecognizable in any way except her race and name, which gives rise to certain thoughts. Even the level can only be determined with the help of the appropriate bracelet. For a few moments, there is absolute dead and tense silence all around. Finally, with a heavy sigh, Peach allows her minions to leave, and they thank her. Unsuspecting, Warden suggests that his friends also go home, but in vain. Peach says the permit didn't apply to them, so they could have just said hello first. Warden fearlessly turns to his interlocutor, asking him about the problems he has. Peach openly displays displeasure at the high-level newcomer interacting with low-level ones. Of course, the Academy doesn't prohibit this. You can communicate with whoever your heart desires. However, there are also unofficial rules here, which the senior student is going to explain. He is against this trash, imagining itself useful for society and becoming arrogant. Peach is also against equality, against giving hope for it to such scum. The guy says he's looking forward to the battle to get rid of such trash. As he says that war is the best remedy, a memory pops into Quinn's mind. The guy barely controls his strength, trying to understand how he can talk about something like this so easily. A flash of light flashes before his eyes, and then his fist hits some kind of barrier. Riley isn't going to hesitate either, building up a magical charge in his free hand. It only takes a moment for a high-level one to release his power. And he noticed that this sucker doesn't learn from his mistakes. Peach echoes him, lowering him lower. Warden isn't about to leave his friends in the lurch by asking what's wrong with him. It is not possible to hit the enemy. He escapes the attack too easily. Quinn asks his friend to stop his pointless attempts. He doesn't want to give up so easily. The guy admits to himself that he is too impulsive and shouldn't have quarreled with these two. Peach says she has no intention of fighting them, only giving a friendly warning. He says that there are those in the academy that even the military can't compete with. It's better not to joke. A little later, Peter questions this man's words because there must be control. Warden confirms Peach's words, since it is in the academy's interests to take no action. Quinn agrees with the blonde, explaining that this way the military has more consumables. Our hero suggests that Warden stop communicating with them, but he is furiously indignant. Quinn acknowledges his friend's attempt to help, but also points out potential difficulties along the way. Warden says he can protect them and is about to add something else when he is interrupted. Quinn says that this will be possible if you have nothing to do with people like them. Peter, apologizing to the blonde, agrees with the position of his second roommate. Warden interrupts him, saying that he will follow their advice if they so wish. Looking at the back of the departing blonde, Peter notes his depressed state of mind. He feels the need to explain everything to his friend, but Quinn finds this arrangement better. Neither the boys, nor especially Warden, notice Riley watching all of this. The blonde says that if you're not capable of anything, you're just wasting your time. But then he rudely shuts up his invisible interlocutor, saying that he doesn't know his desires. He says that there is a difference between opportunity and desire. The opinions of others are not important. The guy angrily and confidently declares that he is not going to leave things like this. Quinn is sent flying backwards by his opponent's kick, his friend shouting his own name. Giving himself points, Riley thinks that the two of them were just fighting in vain. His position is that the inferior will always remain so, no matter the number of points. Quinn wonders how his current self is different from his past self. Nothing changes. Peter talks about his small stash, while his fellow sufferer dreams of justice. Meanwhile, the system reports the appearance of a new task. Quinn is surprised. It's a side quest and involves fighting Riley. Just when the guy thinks about the absurdity of the quest, the system informs him of an additional reward. While sun avoidance does increase strength, it's still not enough. When the boys return to their room, they are greeted by the casual tone of their neighbor. He says that he has been waiting for them for a long time, and Peter asks about the beatings. The blonde jokes it off. And then he switches gears, asking if the two had accidentally run into any problems. Peter is about to confess, but Quinn beats him to it, saying that nothing happened to them. He whispers to his neighbor that it's better not to tell Warden. He won't just let it go. Even though they said they had just eaten, their stomachs were much more honest. Quinn reminds him about his metabolism, and the blonde asks him to go grocery shopping. He transfers 10 points to his friend, who asks in amazement if this is really for him. And then he gets embarrassed, but his interlocutor asks him to consider this an apology for today. Warden admits to his stubbornness, but wants to count on the help of his friends in the future. Students passing by in the store are discussing what happened today. They are scared. Quinn realizes that these are Peach's henchmen, and they are talking about their brother's look. In whispers, the two discuss Riley's advice to get points, or else they won't be covered anymore. At this very moment, the system throws up a task to defeat any enemy. Doing it directly is too risky, but our hero has an idea. After leaving the store, the guys disperse, and Quinn immediately falls on the tail of one of them. After some time, he begins to clearly feel the thirst emanating from his pursuer. Turning sharply, he addresses him and asks who he is. And he asks to come out, stopping pretending to be a ghost. But there is no one nearby. As soon as the guy breathes a sigh of relief, getting ready to continue on his way, he falls silent. His gaze takes on an uncertain expression for just a few moments, after which the area is filled with a heart-rending cry filled with fear. Quinn thinks this guy is a complete coward, and his friend is now in the middle of nowhere. But then the one mentioned in my mind appears, asking the guy in the mask who he is. Quinn mentally clicks his tongue in frustration, feeling like he's been caught like a baby. The opponent attacks, leaving no time for reflection and repeating his question. Analyzing Brandon's status window, Quinn tries to decipher the wind release ability. From time to time, the guy expresses his thoughts, believing that our hero has decided to pretend to be a ghost. Quinn, however, notes the impressive speed of this man, unable to think otherwise. Just a moment later, the boy learns another use for the wind release. Brandon says he figured it out, and Quinn is one of the people who had their glasses taken away. He mocks the guy, saying that hiding your face won't get you revenge, it's not enough. Brandon says that he will forgive the insolent man only if he takes off this mask. Meanwhile, Quinn analyzes his opponent's abilities, comparing them with his fighting style. And he comes to the conclusion that his defense is weak. He needs to hit him at least once. Asking if he is tired of living, Brandon performs wind blade strikes. But his opponent forces his way through all obstacles, not sparing his own body. The obsession with hitting at least once pushes all common sense out of the head. And when he gets close enough, Quinn delivers his first blow with all his might. Since the opponent dodges, the guy comes up with a more effective idea. Closing the distance again, Quinn says he's going to shred that ugly face in front of him. And without thinking twice, the guy delivers a sure blow that simply cannot fail. Brandon holds back as long as he can, but the area is still filled with his piercing roar. Thus, the side quest is completed, and Quinn receives his well-deserved reward. The guy doesn't like this system, but he takes advantage of the opportunity to level up. And then something happens that he could never have expected, causing him to gasp in surprise. Quinn feels an inexplicable wave of blood-chilling heat roll through his body. The bite site begins to throb, causing Quinn to scream in pain. After thanking the cashier one last time, an unsuspecting Layla leaves the store. A strange sound makes the girl turn around sharply, her honed reflexes making their contribution. Peering into the darkness, Layla tries to discern what is hidden in it, but in vain. The guy doesn't consider the evolution into a half-human to be such. He's only happy with the increase in his health indicator. Well, and the skill, Bloodblade, which is an offensive ability. The system warns that it is no longer possible to suppress the thirst for blood. You need to drink. Otherwise, health will continue to decline and only saturation will help to restore it. Quinn himself feels this overwhelming hunger, which is becoming increasingly difficult to bear. The guy can't think about anything else. All his thoughts are filled with nothing but blood. By approaching and touching a potential victim, he is only going to try. Hearing strange and ambiguous sounds, The one sitting in the bushes misunderstands everything. She presents a completely different picture, since from her position it is impossible to see everything in detail. Desperately turning her head to come to her senses, Layla tries to find another explanation, and Quinn suddenly stops, wondering what he's doing. Backing away in fear, the boy realizes that he just lost control of himself. Quinn knows it was the vampire's innate instinct that kicked in, but who can explain it to? Layla slowly begins to think logically, realizing that these two were not kissing at all. Rushing after the nimble shadow, the girl is going to follow the strange first-level one. The same one, stopping, understands that his health continues to decline. Things are bad. The system notifies the owner that his hunger is already at its limit. Some kind of plan appears in his head, and the guy goes to the necessary place. Layla can't understand what this first-level person needs in the hospital's medical office. The only theory that comes to mind is that Quinn was wounded. But this guy is acting strange, and the girl is trying to figure out what he is looking for. And Quinn, realizing that she is at her limit and can no longer find the strength in herself, weakens. Layla arrives just in time to prevent the guy from hitting his head on the floor. The girl asks about the guy's condition, mentally noting that his whole body is burning. Quinn no longer understands whether he is conscious or whether this is a mirage, but he tries to focus. There are two natures fighting within him, and the guy apologizes in advance for his next actions. When Quinn falls on the tender neck and encircles the girl's body, Layla asks to stop. Weakly trying to resist, she asks the guy what he is doing, but he doesn't hear her, because he can no longer think of anything except this sweet blood. Layla stops resisting and, gasping helplessly, slowly goes limp in Quinn's arms. When she falls, the guy doesn't even try to catch her. His thoughts are focused on something else. Meanwhile, the user's hunger decreases and health begins to gradually recover. Quinn rushes to the girl, trying to bring her to her senses and asking how she is. Having laid her on the bed, the guy announces his intention to call a doctor. While running around the hospital wing looking for a doctor, Quinn reports that Layla has fainted. After some time, the girl manages to open her heavy eyelids with difficulty. Dr. Miley tells the woman who woke up that there is nothing serious, just a little anemia. She prescribes vitamins to the girl and advises her to thank her boyfriend for his concern. Layla is trying to understand which guy they are talking about. Who could possibly be so worried about her? The doctor says he's talking about Quinn, but the girl calls him an ordinary classmate. In the head of the girl, who remembered how she was bitten, a clear assumption begins to form. There is only one word that comes to mind that can describe someone who feeds on blood. After taking the blood, Quinn's hunger was pacified and his stats increased. While his friend asks someone for forgiveness in his sleep, the guy studies his system window. Improved stats are nice, but the problem of blood production still exists. Remembering the taste of Layla's blood, the guy becomes interested in comparing her with another. Quinn is thinking about talking to the girl about buying and selling her blood. But he finds it strange to spend money on buying blood, and besides, he doesn't have any. Teacher Dar announces the end of the lesson and reminds of important information. He warns that next week they will have a combat practical lesson. Warden is curious about what they will do with it. Peter shares his thoughts on it. Quinn suggests that his friends go first, announcing their intention to visit the medical office. Warden promises to take a portion for his friend, who, thanks to the blonde, leaves. Following his route, the guy tries to figure out where the blood could be stored. He suggests that it should be stored in a cooler place, such as a laboratory. When he is grabbed by the scruff of the neck, a girl's voice unquestioningly offers to chat a little. In a demanding tone, Layla asks what Quinn did to her yesterday, but he evades. The girl tells him not to lie, saying that she remembers how he bit her yesterday in the medical office. Layla responds to stupid excuses unwaveringly, brushing them aside and stating them. The guy says that he wants to explain everything to his interlocutor, but it is extremely difficult. Layla says that she understands everything perfectly. Quinn asks her what she wants. The girl promises that she can keep a secret, but in return asks the guy to help her. He, beginning to sense something was wrong, nevertheless clarifies what kind of help his interlocutor requires. Layla says something Quinn didn't expect to hear. She asks to be turned into a vampire. He decides to clarify whether he understood correctly, and the girl says that she wants to become a vampire. Quinn asks again, and Layla replies that this is her biggest dream. The girl says that she simply adores vampires, starting to list their virtues. Quinn leaves Layla stunned as he tells her how he acquired his vampirism. The girl falls into despair, because in a lifetime one can master only one ability. Coming to her senses a little, she asks why Quinn is hiding, and he explains. Catching a thread of hope in the words, Layla returns to life again, seeing an opportunity for herself. Quinn agrees with the words that he doesn't yet know for sure whether he can convert others. Layla offers her blood, asking that if the opportunity arises, she be turned into a vampire. The guy agrees, but emphasizes that there are no guarantees. Peter is rushing to his friend. Quinn asks her friend what happened. Layla remembers this guy. Peter, having caught his breath a little, reports that Warden has problems. Running into the necessary room, Quinn asks his friend what happened to him. The same one turns to the one who asked the question, but the latter's attention is directed to someone else. There is blood splattered all over the floor and walls, which is torture for a newly minted vampire. The boy's heart stumbles, skips a beat, and begins to speed up its rhythm. Peter asks fearfully if it was Warden himself who beat up all those people. He doesn't answer, but that's not required. Everything is clear without words. Quinn asks if they are the cause of the fight. Warden asks not to approach him. Layla notices that the blonde is bleeding and thinks he needs to go to the medical center. As he passes by, the guy gives her a disparaging look but doesn't stop. Quinn asks his friend where he is going, and his friend politely asks him not to bother him. Peter says they were talking about the test, and then some seniors pestered them. Quinn tries to figure out what's going on, and his friend asks him about his relationship with Layla. The guy says that they met by chance, and the girl suggests having dinner together. Peter declines the offer to join them, wishing the boys a good time. Quinn doesn't like this, and the girl says that she has a lot of questions for him. She actually invites him to eat together, but the guy says he's busy. At the medical center, the guy asks her if she is sure. The girl confirms it. There is only one thing Layla asks for, that Quinn be more gentle when doing this. The guy asks the girl what she is doing, and she immediately feels awkward. Layla reminds him that he bit her yesterday, and Quinn says it was because he was hungry. And in general, the guy thinks that this is unhygienic. He doesn't want to give the girl some kind of infection. Layla asks to aim only at the vein, but for Quinn, this is the first time. He is just learning. In the end, he succeeds, but the girl thinks it would have been better to bite. Layla suggests that if you don't have enough money, you can sell your skill book. The guy says that he thought about it himself, but the book disappeared, merging with his body. The girl is surprised at first, but comes to the conclusion that there is still a lot they don't know. She is inspired by the idea that over time, Quinn could become a real vampire. While the girl asks how her blood tastes, the guy makes sure that she is not hurt. By replying that her blood is sweet, Quinn suggests that his sense of taste has changed as well. He learns that by consuming blood of different types, characteristics can be improved. Now the guy even regrets that yesterday he couldn't taste the blood of two people. Noticing the reaction, Layla understands that the guy has come to some conclusion, which he confirms. And he invites the girl to go to the library, but she wants to eat first. She's hungry. Quinn teases the girl, saying that he could tell by the taste that her sugar levels were rising. Warden, watching them, quietly says that this guy belongs to him. The blonde asks if he isn't dangerous, since even one look is enough for that. Contradicting himself, he says that Quinn can actually talk to others. Returning home, Peter wonders who Warden might be arguing with. The blonde guy notices him, and the boy says that he doesn't want to disturb his friend by interrupting the conversation. Warden's face changes, saying that he hasn't spoken to anyone right now. Peter tries to object, but the blonde retorts, suggesting that they go and eat instead. The conversation turns to those guys, and the brown-haired man is interested in what they did to his friend. Quinn thanks the girl for today, and she tells him that it is her duty. Saying goodbye to the strange woman, the guy feels uneasy because she calls him sir. Returning to the dorm, the guy notices an interesting picture. Warden encourages Peter. The friends are happy, and the blonde notices that the brown-haired man is carrying around a lump of mud balls. Warden helps his neighbor, suggesting how to do things better and more correctly. Peter is in awe of how quickly the blonde mastered the 5th-tier ability. Quinn asks about his friend's well-being, and he assures him that he will soon get used to it. Peter asks the brunette about the girl when he says he wanted to ask something. Quinn asks questioningly, and the brown-haired man expresses a suspicion about his closeness with Layla. The brunette categorically denies it, starting to talk about who Layla is to him. But suddenly he stops, remembering how the girl called him sir at the end of the day. Finally, Quinn says that they are just classmates, and he is teaching her how to use weapons. Peter assumes that his friend has decided to join the Beast Equipment Squad, explaining for him. In the Unarmed Fighter Squad, physical training is the foundation of the basics. In the Beast Armor Squad, more attention is paid to the choice and use of weapons. If the weapon's advantages can be exploited, the weak can overcome the strong. Both boys want to join the Unarmed Fighter Squad, but Peter is required to do so by his level. He sympathizes with Quinn, who thinks that one day he will have to tell his friends about his ability. Although the guy actually thinks that the Beast Equipment Squad sounds good, Dar prioritizes the choice of weapon, which is the only support in the event of the loss of superpowers. One of the students is sure that the unarmed fighter squad speaks exactly the same way. Maintaining a conversation costs him and his interlocutor a moment of experienced fear. The Beast Equipment Squad's instructor, Plumfight, says that they will die then. Layla asks Quinn about his friends, and he says they joined the unarmed fighter squad. The girl groans with displeasure, asking what this girl is doing here. The interlocutor clarifies. But he himself understands who we are talking about, seeing the one who surpassed Layla last time. The latter says that next time they clash, she will definitely not lose. Plumfight tasks the students with choosing a weapon, but each student can only choose one. Before doing so, Quinn carefully studies the characteristics using the scout function. To his surprise, his gaze falls on something that makes the guy interrupt his thoughts. This item is a piece of armor called the Black Claw Gloves. They boost basic stats and improve combat skills, as if made for Quinn. The teacher advises choosing something else, since the item is only good for close range. Thanks to the man for the advice, Quinn says that he will still try, but he says something strange. Plumfight asks everyone to be silent, and those who have already chosen a weapon to come to him. Irene is the first to raise her hand, announcing her intention to open this stage. The boys begin to talk quietly, ready to sacrifice themselves to the goddess. As soon as the teacher starts asking who wants to spar, he falls silent in understanding. After running his gaze over the crowd of students, he allows the tall one to come out, who is happy. And going up on stage, he says with rapture that even an outstanding newcomer cannot overcome him. The girl doesn't answer. Instead of words, her actions and determined attitude speak for her. This boar takes off at a speed unusual for his size. Irene is cold-blooded. Instead of panicking, she parries and dives down, dodging the enemy's attack. The senior student sees her movements, but he can't do anything to counter them. He doesn't have time. The girl, however, after his admission that the battle was lost, considers him a chatterbox. Quinn thinks that Irene's movements are different from everyone else's. They are graceful. The teacher asks everyone else to check the bracelets, which will select an opponent by level. While his opponent expresses dissatisfaction, Quinn ponders his own capabilities, experiencing doubts. Guys with identical third-level abilities are making fun of a colleague. And he, believing that the distribution is wrong, is going to deal with the enemy as quickly as possible. The people around him make fun of Quinn, and Layla asks if the guy is confident in his abilities. After completing this task, the guy will be able to receive a reward and level up. In anticipation, he invites his opponent to begin, and he too is burning with impatience. This is why the third level gives in forward only after the beginning is confirmed. Since Quinn manages to successfully dodge the attack, the boy involuntarily praises him. However, he is confident in himself, since his weapon is not piercing, but cutting. When the enemy's spear freezes after the attack, the spectators scream almost in unison. Layla is unable to contain her fear. The guy's name bursts out of her involuntarily. However, it is in vain. Quinn notes that the claws he chose have quite good protection. Desperately twitching in an attempt to free himself, the opponent finally asks the guy to let go. He clarifies whether he really wants this, while simultaneously accumulating energy in his hand. Still not receiving an answer, the guy makes a decision for his opponent, allowing him to get what he deserves. The onlookers can't believe that this guy managed to intercept Ance's attack. The girls I know are also surprised, but in different ways. Noticing the enemy's movement, Ance understands what he has planned only at the last moment. Quinn, knocking the spear out of someone else's hands, simultaneously sends his opponent flying. Gasping for air, he covers quite an impressive distance. Ance says that his opponent has angered him, but the teacher notes that the competition is over. Quinn's opponent can't believe he lost, citing problems with his weapon. The teacher shouts angrily, saying that no one will be able to cheat under his nose. Those present do not understand how a third-level person could lose to a boy without abilities. Layla quietly remarks that Quinn has made enemies again, and their number is growing. The guy doesn't care about this. He only feels sorry for the blood that was spilled in vain. The girl gets it. And she asks her interlocutor not to worry, because soon she will reward him accordingly. Quinn flushes and stutters, asking the girl what she's even talking about. Along with the stated experience points, Quinn receives a skill called blood storage. The guy enjoys the abundance of awards, and his worries about storing blood turn out to be in vain. While testing Quinn's level and ability, the teacher finds out that she is not the latter. The man is surprised by this, feeling that this boy has interested him. An hour later, he allows the students to rest, after which they will spar in pairs. Quinn congratulates the girl on her victory, and she responds with her usual immodesty and self-confidence. Telling his friend that he has an idea, Reeds begins whispering it to Ance. Approaching the couple, they offer to compete in the next round, justifying the loss. Ants also adds that a few bets won't hurt, and that he's prepared to offer compensation in case of a loss. Layla asks her friend's opinion. He thinks these conditions are not bad. Approaching the teacher, the seniors ask permission to begin, and he allows it. Those nearby begin to take an interest and start making fun of the third-level ones. The system sends Quinn a task, and he understands that he must not lose the duel under any circumstances. The guy finds it strange that the guy with the cabbage head only has one shield. Quinn asks the girl to look after him. Offering to look after the second one, the partner agrees. Meanwhile, the contestants are asked to get ready as the start of the competition is announced. Ants warns his opponent that he will not be able to deal with him so easily. When they clash, Cabbage Head recoils, finding the confrontation dangerous. Layla says that she is his opponent, warning about the possibility of a sneak attack. The girl finds it strange that Reeds does not approach Quinn and does not attack her, and he, continuing to only fight off attacks, gives a signal to his partner. Ants suddenly changes his position, which does not go unnoticed by his closest opponent. The guy starts approaching Quinn with a war cry, who tries to figure out the maneuver. Reeds, meanwhile, makes a hand gesture, taking advantage of the fact that no one is looking at him. But not everyone is absorbed in the battle. There is someone who notices the manipulation. Layla jumps in surprise when she realizes that this is most likely a superpower. And indeed, literally moments later, Reeds directs the phalanxes towards the enemy. Realizing that she won't make it in time, the girl screams at the top of her voice, warning her partner. But it's too late. The projectile has already reached its target, mercilessly biting into the flesh. And while Quinn is distracted, another enemy finishes what his companion started. The student's mock apologizing voice reaches the teacher's ears. Ants says he didn't think Quinn wouldn't be able to react in time and dodge. Layla publicly announces that Reeds cheated, even though it was prohibited. The teacher tells the curly-haired guy to put down his shield and leave the arena, and he gets a little confused. Layla rushes to her partner, asking how he is, amidst murmurs of disapproval directed at her opponents. Ants's weapon falls out of Quinn's wound with a distinctive sound, and he grins. Layla suddenly freezes, her gaze becoming frightened by what meets his gaze. Quinn's chuckles become more confident, suggesting that his opponent was just playing around. Seeing blood spurting from the wound, Ants mentally calls the person standing opposite him sick, and he suggests that he have some fun, since that was his primary goal. The guy can't understand what's happening to his body, but he frantically urges himself to calm down. Only looking at Quinn like this does the words about there being nothing to worry about take on the opposite meaning. Unable to contain his fear, the boy screams hysterically and starts to squeal. Teacher Plumfight comes to the rescue, having managed to react just in time. Ants cuts off his scream, turning into a squeak as the danger has safely passed. The man, turning to the distraught student, asks him to stop. The duel is over. He realizes that Quinn really did intend to kill his classmate. The teacher asks to call a nurse, reporting that one of the students has been injured. He tells Ants that the guy should not come to his classes anymore. The room is still discussing what happened, and Layla responds, indicating the location of the wounded man. The students make all sorts of guesses. Even Irene herself is interested in Quinn. Looking at the weapon the guy has chosen, the man tries to figure out what it could be hiding. This is the first time he's seen anyone deal such powerful damage with these black claws. Dr. Miley says that nothing serious happened. It's enough to just lie down and rest. Layla takes these words into account and politely thanks the woman. Returning to her friend, the girl tells him what the doctor said, and he agrees with it. Quinn thanks Layla for the blood, and they begin to discuss his impulsive action. The girl leaves, telling her friend to rest, and she herself is going to wash his clothes. Noticing the hurrying guys, Layla understands who they are and who they are rushing to. The girl tells them the room number where the boy is staying and relays the doctor's words. Noticing Quinn's clothes, Warden is frightened, amazed by the amount of blood on them. The guy's bipolar disorder wakes up again, one of whose personalities remembers his words. Layla asks him who he is talking to, and Peter asks his neighbor to calm down. Shutting up either the girl or his own personality, the blonde does not hold back. It becomes clear when Warden asks her what she did to Quinn that Peter panics. With great effort, Layla says that she did nothing, and the neighbor begs the blonde to calm down. Warden tells Peter to shut up too, forbidding anyone to call him by that name, and the boy gets scared. With the last of her strength, the girl tries to gather energy while she is distracted, and switching attention to his own voice, he takes advantage of the pause. As the scalpel cuts into the man's leg, the grip weakens, releasing Layla from his hand. Between coughs, the girl orders him to take his hands off her. She warns that if the guy approaches her again, Layla will finish him off. Peter reminds her that this girl is Quinn's friend, but he stands his ground, wanting to teach her a lesson. Another personality comes to the rescue, saying that he also heard these words from his friend. The guy suddenly changes, apologizing and saying that due to ignorance of the situation, he may have acted hastily. Putting the scalpels back in place, Layla says that she is not going to tell him anything. Reminding that Quinn is in the ward, the girl suggests finding out everything from him herself. She asks to keep a better eye on the blondie. Peter apologizes, saying that Warden is usually normal. The guy asks the blonde how he is, saying that he thinks he's acting a bit strange today. Warden talks to himself again about Layla and how something might happen to her on the way. One of the blonde's personalities reminds him that the girl is his friend, but the other two don't care. Finally, Warden reacts to his friend, asking what is wrong, and he becomes uneasy. Ants and Reeds discuss what happened recently. Their actions did not lead to anything good. One of the guys blames the other, believing that they are now disgraced because of their stupid idea. Jumping up, Reed suggests reminding his interlocutor of the difference between them. He's going to find him in the evening, otherwise everyone will think that they really are trash. Warden, calling Quinn's opponents bastards, promises to definitely deal with them. The friend says that this will not happen again because the teacher kicked them out. Quinn reminds the blonde that he won't be able to protect them forever. The guy's gaze falls on his friend's leg and he asks what happened to his leg. The blonde laughs, asking his neighbor not to worry, since these minor injuries are caused by training. Peter whispers that Warden is emotionally unstable and often talks to himself. The bespectacled man also confesses to the reason why his neighbor received his injury. Hearing that the girl is okay, she was just a little scared, the guy calms down. Peter suggests that Warden has a mental illness, and Quinn wants to ask a doctor. The blonde guy who appeared briskly tells Peter that they have to go, and the guys get scared and feel awkward. Quinn thanks the guys for coming in. Warden says that this is normal for brothers. Ants admits that the blonde man intimidates him, but Reeds doesn't see it as a problem. The blonde man tells his friend to wait, intending to take Quinn to a place without cameras. Seeing the wounded man leaving his room, the two prepare to follow him. Their path leads through hospital patients and several medical staff. Ants wonders in his mind where Quinn is heading, remembering what is in that direction. Realizing that they will most likely end up on the roof, the guy rejoices at his luck. Ants gestures to his friend that he will go up and that he should go along the other side. Having agreed and reached an understanding, Ants continues on his way, cautiously creeping. Having reached the roof, the guy tries to figure out where Quinn could have disappeared to. He appears behind him and asks if the green-haired man was looking for him. The guy turns around sharply, sensing something is wrong, but it's too late. And the last thing that appears before his eyes are two lights and sparkling fangs. Reeds can't understand why his friend is taking so long. He's starting to get impatient with the wait. When the guy reaches the last step, he realizes that the door to the street is open. Straining his eyes to get a better look at what's happening, Reeds lets out a curse. The sight that appears before the fair-haired man's eyes is terrifying. Ready to attack the enemy at any moment, Reeds orders him to immediately move away from his friend. When the creature turns around, the boy notices that its lips are stained with blood. Cursing, the blonde man still fires a volley but misses. The enemy is unusually fast. A gust of disturbed air rushes past, making you wince. It smells of blood. As Reeds tries to dodge, he can't help but find himself finding the speed impressive. And the creature is already in front of him, delivering a powerful blow that is difficult to resist. Also, against my will, an association of this monster with Quinn arises in my head. It's incredible. And he already raises his clawed paw back to pierce the enemy with his demonic energy. Reeds catches himself in time, concentrating his energy inside and activating his defense. He manages not only to push the enemy back, but also to reach him, inflicting a wound. Allowing himself to slide across the rooftop, Quinn hisses in pain at the injury. The hand trembles treacherously, and the opponent, grinning, begins his tirade. Reeds is glad that he has protection, otherwise he wouldn't be able to withstand such a blow. The guy starts to say that it's his turn to attack, but stops. It is hard to believe that the wounds of the person standing opposite were healed. But it is true. Reed's knees start to tremble when he thinks about this monster training at their academy. And then he takes off from his place and jumps into the air in a way that no other person could. When the boy's bone blade breaks, the boy refuses to believe it. Meanwhile, the enemy begins to deliver multiple blows, intending to destroy the defense. Reeds is having a hard time because the power and frequency of these attacks are too high for him. And at the very moment when the guy allows the thought that the defense will not hold, it happens. Reeds is thrown back several meters, causing him to smash across the court, scattering bones. Only this red moon, which became an involuntary witness, knows what happened. Meanwhile, the system informs its owner about the successful completion of the previous task. Quinn manages to not only replenish his health, but also improve his stats. But then he hears approaching footsteps behind him and voices discussing their work. A young nurse screams, calling her older colleague to look at something terrible. They call the duty unit, requesting an ambulance and security, and briefly describing the situation. While Quinn is trying to figure out what to do, a familiar questioning voice approaches him from behind. Quickly turning around and grabbing the uninvited guest, the guy is about to ask who he is. Belatedly, he realizes that it is Layla, the girl telling her friend how she ended up here. Quinn asks if she has actually arrived, and her interlocutor's answer is positive. The arriving reinforcements ask where the wounded are. They are going to check everything here. Quinn tenses when he hears that the Secret Service agents intend to inspect the entrance as well. Grabbing his girlfriend in his arms, the guy informs her that she needs to get out of here. The guy suddenly realizes that something is wrong, and for some reason they are not flying. He asks Layla about this, and she recalls her words about how she needed preparation. But the girl values her life, so she folds her hands in the appropriate gesture, concentrating. Quinn states the fact that they are indeed flying. Layla exhales tiredly, ironically. Later, she asks if her friend will tell her everything now, and he says it's a long story. When he finally gets around to telling his story, Layla expresses her opinion about these guys. Quinn asks her not to worry, because what these two will tell about him is unlikely. There is no evidence. He asks her what's going on with Warden. She pauses, and then calls him sick. Layla asks her friend to be careful, arguing that the blonde has problems with his head. Quinn thinks hard about it. So hard that he thinks about it even the next day. He recalls his friend's words about how the blonde loses herself, succumbing to emotions, becoming bipolar. The conversation is interrupted by a familiar, but for some reason stuttering and quiet voice. They greet him, and they apologize. Reeds very politely asks Quinn for forgiveness for yesterday. The guy also apologizes for the fact that they accidentally injured the enemy during training. The blonde man asks for mercy in exchange for promising to remain silent about yesterday. Quinn clarifies. Reed says he didn't see anything, asking to give him a chance, and his interlocutor lets him go. Calling him sir, the boy thanks Quinn, saying that he is already leaving. A breathless Lena, who has been looking for her friend for a long time, hurries to him. He asks what happened. The girl reports that something bad has happened. One of the guys who attacked him yesterday is dead. Of course, it turns out to be none other than Ance Spend, who died yesterday close to midnight. The cause of death was severe bleeding, due to which he lost a lot of blood. There are numerous lacerations on his body, as if the guy had been attacked by a wild animal. It sounds absurd because the academy is safe, and no one, especially an animal, can get in. But they brought this guy here twice. The first time with a classmate, the second time alone. The doctor recalls how yesterday Ance was found in front of the hospital entrance, his pupils no longer reacting. The Griffin asks if they are making fun of him, because these wounds do not look like bites at all. The woman says they looked larger than snake bites, but they healed too quickly. The man asks his second interlocutor what she thinks, and she replies that there are no leads. In the practice room, this is the hottest topic of discussion. The students blame Quinn because he had a fight with Ance the day before. Layla calms her friend down. People approach the guy, saying that the military would like to talk to him. The student asks what the question is, and the teacher tells him not to worry about it. The guy agrees, mentally hoping that no one said anything about him. As he leaves, Quinn asks his friend not to worry about him. He promises to return soon. The teacher announces the start of free practice and asks students to be careful. Quinn is asked not to worry, because if he hasn't done anything, then he has nothing to fear. The woman begins by talking about Ance's murder, gradually moving on to yesterday's quarrel with him. She asks the guy to put his hand on her own, and he obediently complies. The system reports that it cannot refuse the activation of the ability from outside. A voice appears in his head, forcing him to answer the question, "Did he kill Ance yesterday?" The guy obeys without complaint, but his negative answer surprises the woman. She informs her colleagues that this boy is telling the truth, thus ending the interrogation. Quinn mentally reasons, suggesting that this woman might be able to ignore the system's protections. They let him go, thanking him for his cooperation and apologizing for wasting their time. As he leaves, Plumfight recalls his words about how this boy is not guilty of anything. Griff suggests closing the case since there are no suspects and blaming it on an accident. If higher-ups want to conduct their own investigation, they can reopen the case. If you dwell on it, you can only harm yourself, because sometimes it's difficult to get to the truth. Layla and Quinn discuss what happened in the interrogation room and the woman who specializes in interrogations. The guy talks about what happened, believing that he couldn't kill Ance, The girl slows down. She checks with her interlocutor, asking if it is his neighbor standing there now. But he is not alone. And Layla tries to understand why he is with people like these. Peach asks Peter if he thinks the same way, and the boy agrees with an awkward laugh. Quinn can't believe her eyes, which immediately meet her neighbor's. The guy is about to rescue him, but Layla stops him, switching her attention to someone else. Warden asks Peter if he's being harassed. Peach replies that they're just hanging out together. He asks the bespectacled one to confirm, and he, awkwardly looking away, agrees with the elder. Warden invites Peter to lunch, but Riley says they want to go too, just without him. Redhead asks his interlocutor if he is really so possessive that he doesn't want to share his friends. Peter tells Warden that everything is fine and these guys are not forcing him at all. He is stunned. Those leaving begin to discuss the gym, and Quinn, who runs up, addresses the blonde man. He says he thought Peter was in trouble, but he never said anything like that. Warden isn't against good friends, but these don't seem like that. Quinn suggests discussing it in the evening. A suitable Layla says she thinks he needs to communicate more with others. The blonde man, noticing the girl, apologizes, but she suggests simply keeping their distance. Quinn allows him to share his concerns with her, but her interlocutor expresses doubts. He suggests talking about everything in the evening when Peter comes. The guy agrees. Layla admires this brotherly friendship, asking if Quinn will tell her his secret. He answers with embarrassment, saying that perhaps someday, with time, he will mature. That evening, the boy waited until dawn, but no one came. They weren't answering their calls or texts, so Quinn decided to catch them in class. Meanwhile, all first-year students were asked to go to the assembly hall, and a commotion ensued. Quinn involuntarily draws a parallel with the disappearance of his friends, and Layla reassures him. Once inside, the students try to understand what is going on here and whether there will really be a performance. Arguments begin about who will speak, some talking about instructions from management. Even Layla is starting to think that something is wrong since she can't even see the teachers. Noticing Riley in the crowd of sophomores makes Quinn feel even more uneasy. Peach appears in the spotlight and says he has prepared a special event for the students. The guy says that their academy has traditions that are preserved to this day. He talks about those who dare to disobey them, and now Peach is going to show the insolent ones. Irene's eyes flicker among the students. She watches everything with curiosity, without losing her vigilance. The senior student is just saying that he will show what happens to those who dare to break traditions. When the curtain slides aside, what the students see shocks them and they gasp. Even Quinn and Layla can't help but stare in shock when they see the stage. The boy is forced to watch his friends suffering in silence, which is why his name comes out of his mouth. Taking a closer look at his face, Quinn realizes that he has never seen Warden like this before. Meanwhile, Peach approaches the blonde and grins evilly, then speaks. The senior asks the others not to worry, because he is ready to enlighten the others as well. Calling his henchmen over, Peach begins to talk about the turning points of the war with Darky. The beast crystal in the boy's hand reveals power. He wants to teach him how to use it. Quinn is trying to figure out why the senior has gathered everyone here and if he isn't afraid. One of the students takes the liberty of asking who entrusted the student with teaching the students. He is also curious about that guy who looks like a living dead. Riley gets fed up with this and hits the person who spoke, saying that chatterboxes need to be punished. Peach asks the others if they have any other questions. The silence satisfies him, and the guy says that everyone needs to focus on the ball. If it changes color, the activation was successful, after which the item should be thrown away. But just to make sure he hits the mark, Peach asks the students if they agree on the level of ease. Freshmen begin to tense up when unpleasant thoughts come into their heads. Meanwhile, Peach addresses the girl, urging her to start, but she becomes confused. Riley approaches her, assisting a friend and giving the student the ball. She refuses. Peach notes that there really is only one chance. If it fails, there are no other options. And he does what the girl feared inside, causing her to let out a broken scream. Along with it, a fountain of blood bursts out of the girl's mouth, causing her to choke. Turning to her in fear, the man standing nearby calls the student Triss Sagebrush. Peach asks what's wrong with them since he's already explained everything, but they still don't want to understand. Riley points to the guy standing next to Triss, telling him that he is next. Peach, watching him closely, expresses hope that he will do well. He, not wanting to repeat the fate of his girlfriend, apologizes to Warden, throwing the ball. His eyes widen for a moment when he hits, and a bloody cough comes out of his chest. Peach praises the student, stating the fact that he succeeded despite his fears. Layla suggests finding a teacher. She believes that Plumfight is definitely on their side. Peach says that if no one comes out, he will choose himself. But Layla does not understand her friend's behavior. Quinn, confidently approaching him, asks to let him try it too, and he is surprised. But the emotion quickly gives way to anticipation, and he tells Riley to give the crystal to his roommate. Receiving the designated item, Quinn, looking at it, begins to giggle quietly. No one notices from their seats the striking changes that the boy's face has undergone. Therefore, observers condemn Quinn's actions, remembering Warden's attitude towards him. Peach tells the guy to hurry up with the activation and ignore everyone else. And Quinn thinks that Riley, with her level, is almost as much of a problem as Peach. In addition, they are surrounded by 8 second-level students, 2 of whom are next to Warden. Despite their numerical superiority, they are all very strong, and the others are afraid of them. Quinn believes they need someone in charge, and Irene is the strongest one present. Peach asks the guy about his hesitation, and he says he hasn't found a weak spot yet. The system reports that the Beast Ball can be activated by it. Quinn is surprised by this. He doesn't refuse it, because activation gives a 5% increase to attack. Peach is amazed by this, not understanding how a level 1 could achieve such brightness. The same one, first of all, turns to everyone, asking why they need a superpower. Warden, guessing what his friend was planning, begs him with all his might not to do it. Quinn is responsible for the rest, saying that superpowers are needed to protect others. When the ball hits a completely different person, it leaves everyone present puzzled. Peach screams wildly, ordering his stunned accomplices to immediately seize the troublemaker. He, intending to make a strategic retreat along the way, apologizes and orders them to let him through. Riley, who appeared in front of him, says that the opponent will not be able to escape from them. The opponent throws the ball with a powerful swing and a characteristic sound. Calling Quinn naive, Riley says he won't be able to hit him. The guy confirms these words, but says that the same cannot be said about others. Hearing the distinctive sounds behind him, Riley says that the second-tier ones are useless. Peach orders Quinn to be captured, but Layla responds fearlessly, trying to reason with the others. The student also decides not to stand on ceremony, ordering an attack on everyone who does not obey him. A powerful stream of alien ability immediately bursts into the air, heading towards the students. He would have hit them, but the already familiar ice supernatural ability comes to the rescue. Irene says she was reluctant to get involved at first, but the blow affected her too. One of the guys asks who she is, and the second one annoyedly states the fact of failure. The girl calls herself by her full name, and an ice sword immediately appears in her hand. The guy who attacked says he knows her, and the second one offers to work with him. Without responding to save time, the water specialist continues to try to attack. The second one challenges the girl, asking her to transform not water but stone. His technique is not even fully completed when it is interrupted by several volleys. The student himself barely manages to dodge to avoid injury and turns around in surprise. Layla states that Irene is not alone, and she calls on her partner to join the fight. At this time, Peter, sitting in the thick of the battle, tries to bring his breathing back to normal. There's only one thought pulsating in his head, gnawing at his skull. This is all entirely his fault. He remembers how it all started. When Peter asked Peach why they were there, he replied that it was all because they were being watched, and that someone was Warden. The blonde apologized to Peter for dragging him into this and asked him to leave. Under the boy's uncomprehending gaze, Warden told his opponents not to touch his friend. Peach said that there was no future for him here and told him to shut his mouth if he wanted to live. And then Peter understood everything. He didn't have the courage to resist these tough guys. A familiar voice reaches the bespectacled man's ears, and he realizes that it belongs to Quinn. He says that he is not afraid of Riley, even though he acts confident and arrogant. Peter wonders with envy why he is not as brave as his neighbor. Quinn thinks that Riley is actually much stronger than he is. After all, abilities of this level far exceed his own capabilities. And it doesn't matter whether it's close combat or protection of certain parts of the body or areas. Everything looks and feels as if the enemy is practically invulnerable. Even attacks at longer ranges are chaotic. Quinn wonders if this is where they differ from each other. A sudden change of scenery, which gives rise to a new train of thought, does not allow me to continue my thought. The system asks if the owner is ready to accept the request to activate the combat course. The stranger tells Quinn that in this space, time is not connected to the outside world, and politely informs the guy that this is a basic course in hand-to-hand combat. The words about Quinn becoming one of them give rise to certain thoughts. Ignoring the question, the blonde says that in the first lesson he will teach the boy 2 skills. They complement each other, as one is an attacker, the other is a defender. The first skill to be demonstrated is a defensive skill called Flash Step. Riley is baffled as to how this level 1 managed to dodge all of his attacks. Instant Step allows you to move quickly within a 5-meter radius. But Riley is not discouraged, offering to see how long Quinn can hold out with such energy. Our hero finds his opponent insightful, but believes that once is enough. The blow is powerful, but Riley still remains on her feet. Smiling, the guy begins to seem to recall the words about the first level one having a memory problem. But he stops short as he realizes that it was he who miscalculated. The vampire informed Quinn that the attack skill was a chain attack. It can be combined with many other techniques to increase its power. This is exactly what happens when Quinn uses Blood Chain Strike. And Riley's self-confidence evaporates at that moment with lightning speed. Those watching the skirmish from the sidelines scream in amazement, unable to believe their eyes. Anyway, it turns out that Riley was the one who lost to the first tier. His comrades are dumbfounded, because according to rumors, his opponent didn't even have any abilities. The random system task of defeating Riley is successfully completed. It's not possible to rejoice for long, as something rushes past that instills a sense of danger. And indeed, although Quinn manages to avoid irreversible consequences, they are significant. Due to the sudden blow, the guy immediately loses 7 units of health, which is not good. Pulling the whip tight until it scrapes, Peach admits that Quinn has been causing trouble. He warns that using it means that the boy is about to meet his end. Another powerful blow causes the space to literally explode, Quinn dodges. But this doesn't help much, and, noting the power, the guy is afraid of getting hit again. But standing still in vain is also not good, so he activates the Blood Blade. His opponent grins as if he had already foreseen this attack, and Quinn is dumbfounded, thinking about why he couldn't even touch his opponent. But the blow reaches its target, causing the guy not only bewilderment but also pain. Quinn has a hunch that Peach has the ability to predict enemy actions. The boy thinks that his physical fitness is almost at its limit. However, he refuses to die today, even though it sounds incredibly funny. Meanwhile, at the other end of the makeshift ring, Layla is being supported from both sides. This turns out to be dangerous, and although she tries to dodge, the enemy's attack inflicts a wound. The girl is asked why she doesn't continue to use her arrows now. And at that moment, a familiar voice is heard from behind, attracting attention, asking for release. Warden asks to touch him as soon as possible. The girl is confused by such wording. But the guy doesn't care. He urges Layla, telling her to touch at least something. The archer is cautious. The touch activates the blonde's ability, because even this can copy power. As the struggle between Warden's personalities continues, Layla becomes convinced of her assumptions. Suddenly all conversations die down and the guy suddenly stops twitching and struggling. One of the opponents wonders what this blonde man can do in such a state. And then he suddenly, tensing his whole body more than before, lets out a deafening roar. When he manages to break free from the binding technique, his opponents are stunned and dumbfounded. And Warden, pushing off with force from the hard surface, sharply flies up to the ceiling. The jump is so powerful that it crushes rocks and causes a strong shockwave. And the one who is Warden to everyone introduces himself as Layton, rejoicing at his return. Peach compliments him on his quick release, but talks about learning lessons. Layton informs him that he is not like Warden, not as kind. Peach says she doesn't understand what he's talking about, although it doesn't matter to him either. Rushing forward, the student commands the enemy to die, and the space explodes again. But not at all from hitting and injuring the opponent, but from him intercepting the weapon. The blonde's look is completely different, which leads to opposite thoughts. Peach thinks seriously about his words, realizing that his power is also different from before. Layton asks Quinn to leave the enemy to him. He agrees, but warns him about the other man's superpower. Peach says that since the boy didn't understand the lesson, he will teach him one more time to remember it better. The blonde, using the borrowed strength, pulls several beast balls towards himself. He throws them at his opponent at the same moment that he himself strikes. Pichu manages to dodge both attacks without expending much strength. But Layton has a different idea, and he gradually begins to put it into effect. Pulling his opponent's weapon towards him, the guy suddenly throws it away using a supernatural ability. From behind, like a sneaky rat, another man attacks him, delighted with his own idea. He's only level 2, so it's easy for the blonde to repel the attack. Peach believes that the enemy has nothing new. He is also going to shoot beast crystals. The opponent leaves these words unanswered, instead concentrating on the idea. Peach smirks, telling his opponent that his actions will have no effect. Quinn, however, analyzes the actions of the one who so successfully dodged the attack every time. As a result, the guy comes to the conclusion that Peach's ability may be foresight. Layton asks who said that he wants to do exactly this way and not another, and the blonde slowly begins to reveal his prepared plan to the enemy. And he says that even if Peach knows him now, she still won't be able to stop him. And then it dawns on the guy. He understands that the whole point lies in the previously released crystal. Peach says that he thinks the enemy is too naive, and that he knows more than just how to hide. The guy notices several ice projectiles only at the last moment, and knocking the air out of Peach's lungs along with a scream, he is overtaken by an enemy attack. Taking a few uneven steps with effort, the guy freezes in place. A single chuckle escapes his lips, gradually growing into a mad giggle. Peach says it was his mistake and he didn't think the blonde had an ace up his sleeve. The guy couldn't even imagine that this boy would be able to use two abilities at once. Watching this, Quinn tries to figure out when it happened, and it dawns on him. The realization that Warden can use two abilities at once is mind-boggling. Peach bursts into manic laughter again, saying that this is getting more and more interesting. However, with a warning thumbs up, he adds something else. Peach says it's not just the blonde who has an ace up his sleeve. Noticing the soul artifact, Layla notices that it has already undergone a reawakening. The girl explains to her friend that this will be able to form a unique weapon in the host's body. Unlike the beast crystal, not everyone can use something like this. It all depends on whether the applicant has a special talent for awakening such a thing. The blonde, also knowing about this, rushes forward, trying to hinder his opponent's plan. However, he turns out to be more agile, aiming his weapon directly at his opponent. Quinn is about to help his friend, but Layla stops him, asking him not to be stupid. The guy realizes that he has spent a lot of energy earlier, and his blood supply is really depleted. He asks Layla to help. She's all for it, but there are too many people in this place. The guy doesn't intend to hesitate, voluntarily forcibly offering to step back. Meanwhile, a flash, which the blonde successfully dodges, shatters the floor. But Peach isn't so simple either, and he takes advantage of the momentary delay to put his plan into action. He suggests seeing where the opponent can hide this time. However, Layton does not intend to allow this to happen. The guy uses the ice blade. This allows him to effectively break the burdensome shackles and free himself. This is why the blonde man successfully leaves before the explosion occurs. Peach chuckles in displeasure, muttering words about fighting a chained beast. Layton states that if the body had not received such serious wounds, it would have been much easier. All the personalities are unanimous in the fact that even with the Pichu Soul artifact, they cannot cope with them. And they decide to take a desperate measure, saying that they are going to call upon the kid. But suddenly the sound of a door opening sharply is heard, and a female voice disarms. A figure appears in the doorway and orders everyone present to stop immediately. Supporting her words with an argument, the woman says what will happen otherwise. The boy who appeared behind her finally lets out a sigh of relief. Peach, who recognizes the woman, calls her Sland, but she tells the one who spoke up to shut up. She says that an interrogation will take place soon, and the guy agrees, afraid to joke with such people. Sland orders the wounded to be sent to the hospital and the rest to go to their rooms. Layla asks how her friend's wounds are, and he says that they are already starting to heal. Running up to the blonde, Peter is going to take him to the hospital. He understands everything. The boy apologizes to his interlocutor, who then pulls him back, asking him to stop wailing. After all, it's just a torn ligament, the blonde didn't die. Peter is distracted by his words, because even with his back, he feels this incredibly burdensome and piercing gaze. The blonde man asks his neighbor what's wrong, but he doesn't find the strength to answer. When this does happen, the boy says that nothing terrible happened. Peach is angry that Sland interrupted the fun at such an inopportune moment. He might be expelled. The interlocutor advises the guy to relax, because nothing like this will happen. General Duke says that as long as he is here, no one will dare lay a finger on Peach. He approves of this, starting to say what will happen if the authorities find out about this. The man growls more than angrily asks if this brat really doubts him. But he apologizes, saying that it's all his fault, and the general praises the guy's intelligence. However, before he can get protection, Peach must promise that no one will find out. The man will sort out the issues with the military academy, and the boy must do his own thing. Falling onto the sofa, he says that he heard that some first-year student reported everything to the military. Peach tells his interlocutor not to worry because he already knows what needs to be done. A voice is heard in the academy office, telling them why they are all gathered here. Plum Fight, just like the doctor sitting nearby, listens to every word of the speaker. We are talking about a violent incident committed by second-year students. General Duke is asked to be the first to express his opinion on this matter and suggest a punishment since the second year is under his responsibility. Asking the person who asked again, the general says that he has no idea about it. He continues, reminding those present that the cause of everything was freshman Warden. If he hadn't attacked the second year first, they wouldn't have responded to the threat to their lives with defense. The man says that at the military academy, students must be able to solve problems with their fists. Nathan is asked if he thinks so too. He starts to speak, but stops. The freshman supervisor says he doesn't care about the incident, but he doesn't condone hazing. And he asks if Duke agrees that those who came a year earlier do not have this right. The interlocutor agrees, saying that he will take responsibility for this and prevent clashes. The next item on the agenda is the death of a first-year student. It's one thing when students get injured, but quite another when they die. The speaker orders the person who finds the criminal to immediately deal with him on the spot.